Lambert-English. My Blackfoot name is Ikinapaki. It means gentlewoman. And I live in Grand Prairie, Alberta. I'm 28 years old, and I'm from Fort Vermilion, Alberta. Right now, I'm an executive director in training at the Grand Prairie Friendship Center. I plan on doing this for as long as I'm needed in the community. One of the most rewarding things for me is the work that I've done with the youth and to see the positive changes that they are making in their lives. I have many role models, but one that definitely sticks out is my late brother, Danny. He was always accepting of everybody and treated everybody as an equal, and I looked up to him for that. So the thing that people might not know about me is that I'm an excellent fire builder. I am able to light a fire with one match and no paper.
And the winner of the 2011 Senior Community Leaders Award is Delaine Lambert-English.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be amongst so many of Alberta's outstanding Aboriginal youth. Congratulations to my fellow finalists and nominees. Whether you've been on this stage tonight or not, you're all winners. You're here being recognized tonight because you're doing great things in your community, so keep it up. Thank you to those individuals who took the time and effort in nominating me to provide letters of support and encouragement, especially to my husband, Aaron, the man who walks beside me. You are my strength, my heart. You heighten my life and you inspirit me. Thank you. To my family, you've taught me the meaning of support and service to others. This strong foundation is one of the main reasons I'm here today. I thank the Grand Prairie Friendship Center Board of Directors and staff for your support and guidance. You've enhanced my future. To the youth here this evening, I love you too, Ethan. That's my nephew. To the youth here this evening, choosing the easy road leaves no room for learning or opportunity. Choose the hard road, so to speak. Choose growth. Igakiman, try hard. In closing, I would like to thank the Métis Nation of Alberta and Rupert's Land Institute for this amazing opportunity. And Christy Laudisser, you've done an amazing job. Thank you. So my name is Delaine. I'm 34 years old. Sorry, I'm totally teaching. I'm doing this like a talking circle. I'm 34 years old. I'm from Fort Vermilion, Alberta. I lived in Grand Prairie for 12 years, and I started off in the workforce, working as a youth worker in high level, and that's kind of been my genre ever since. It's been my field of work. And I met Len a few years back through Spirit Seekers. And I met Kara last year, and I met Ryan along the same time as Len as well. Actually, no, sooner, maybe this year, because Len is a facilitator at Spirit Seekers. And so for me, it's really awesome to be part of this. The identity documentary is something that we've been talking about for a few months now, and it's nice that we have the opportunity to make it happen and bring it to fruition. Being part of when Len was talking about doing this film camp, I was like, man, I want to attend. I want to be one of you guys. So I'm really just think it's really cool that you guys are all here and they were able to bring it all together at such a short notice. And yeah, just really interested to be here with you guys and work alongside you. I won't be here every single day, but I'll be here as much as I can. I have a little 4-month-old baby at home and 3 other kids aside from that, so just really excited to be here with you guys and learn all about what Len and Ryan do here. Son. And she was taken away. And then finally, the year I was born in 1983. So this would have been in the early 60s. In 1983, my grandpa asked my aunt to go look for her. And it didn't take them long. And so he asked the aunt that was there that day with her, trying to light that fire. And it didn't take very long for them to find her. She was raised in Edmonton. And at the time, I think living in Calgary, and she had 3 kids. And they had a huge homecoming for her. You know, so when I think of identity, I really, a lot of times I think of that auntie and how she must have really struggled growing up in a non-Indigenous home, knowing she was different. But, you know, just, and then coming home, and I talked to her about her homecoming, and she said for the first time in her life, she looked around the room and saw people that looked like her. And she grew up all her life without ever feeling that. She didn't, you know, she didn't grow up in her family. And she does. She looks like her sisters. Her kids look like us. Their cousins. And I just really think about her, and really happy that, you know, she's now back in the family, and we can visit with her and we know her, and you know, that piece of her identity is that puzzle's been put together.
Okay, 1 rolling.
Camera 2 rolling.
2 rolling on sound.
Sounds good.
Okay, mark it. Okay, and go for it.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to my show. Delaine, when we sat down and we started talking about this idea of identity, and it started off with a show, then turned into a camp, what was it about exploring identity that intrigued you?
For me, the idea of exploring identity in my own personal experience brought me back to when I was a teenager and when I was struggling with my own identity. I didn't quite know where I belonged. My dad is Métis, my mom is First Nation. And at that time, I didn't understand why I couldn't be treaty. I didn't understand Bill C-31. I didn't understand a lot of things, and I didn't really have anybody who did close to me that could explain it. And I almost felt a bit of rejection from my mom's band, and I didn't realize it wasn't their decision that I couldn't be a band member. It was the government. And so yeah, I remember just wondering why I wasn't allowed to be treaty and that type of thing. And then it wasn't until years later when I discovered more information about Bill C-31 and Bill C-3. And I think it was in 2014 when Bill C-3 came in, the Karen McIver case, when I was actually eligible to be treaty status. And so then at that point in my life, where I had been a member of the Métis Nation most of my life, I had another identity crisis with trying to come to terms with, you know, am I Métis, am I treaty? You know, I had a real struggle with trying to decide whether I should leave my Métis rights behind and access my treaty rights. And it took me a long time. I have 5 siblings, and I was the last one to gain my treaty rights because I just had a little bit of a struggle. And so eventually a friend of mine explained it to me in a way that made me want to access my rights. She said, you know, it's a gift. It's a gift that you can give your children and future generations. So why not accept that gift? And so when I looked at it as a gift rather than a right, I started looking at it in a different sense, and I was able to just follow through and get my treaty rights. And at the same time, I had to make the decision that the government can't tell me with a card what blood is running through my veins. So I had to be okay with, okay, I might not be a member of the Métis Nation anymore, But that doesn't mean, like, I was never ostracized by the Métis Nation. I still go to meetings. I'm still very involved in my Métis community. I was raised in that culture, and so it's still part of me. Just because I'm treaty now doesn't mean that I have to leave that behind. And you know, one of the things I always think of is my daughters, their treaty status through their dad as well, and my son, but mostly my daughters, because my daughters have those Métis traits within them. They have the reddish color in their hair. They have the light eyes. One has hazel eyes, one has blue eyes. So that is those Métis roots shining through in my eyes. So Bill C-31 is through the Indian Act, I believe, and up until 1983, any First Nations woman who married a non-Indigenous person lost their treaty rights. So when my grandmother, Christine Lizotte, when she married my grandfather, she lost her treaty status. Even though my grandfather was Indigenous, he didn't have treaty rights. Farther back in his lineage, they gave up their treaty rights in order to become landowners, because back in the day, treaty people could not own land, and for his ancestors to own land, they had to give up their treaty rights. So that was done. And for that reason, we were raised off reserve, because that was outside of my family. We're landowners. So we were never raised on reserve, because in my lineage, they held land. And so Bill C-31, my grandmother married my grandfather, and she lost her treaty rights. So Bill C-31 gave the treaty rights back to those women who had lost their rights previously by marrying non-Indigenous men. And so, and vice versa. The interesting thing about the Indian Act is there was a bit of sexism as well. If a First Nations man married a non-Indigenous woman, that non-Indigenous woman could become treaty. So, but in my grandmother's case, she married a non-Indigenous man. She lost her treaty rights. So in 1983 or 1985, Bill C-31 came into place. So then my grandmother got her treaty rights back. So then in 1983, she got her treaty rights back, and then those treaty rights carried down one generation. So it was carried down to my mother. So my mother was then able to get her treaty rights, but it would only went down one generation. So that meant that, myself, I couldn't get, my siblings, we couldn't get our treaty rights. And my dad, being a Métis man, he's not First Nations. So yeah, that's how that came in. That's Bill C-31. And then further to that, I don't remember the year, but Bill C-3 came into play, where it was decided that Bill C-31 was, I think it was trying to rectify Bill C-31, and then now it brought Bill C-31 down one more generation. So then then it came to my generation. And then we were able to get our treaty rights because of that. Going through the process of learning my identity, it was a struggle for me. Like I mentioned before, when I finally filled out the paperwork and it was official, I was registered with the government as a treaty Indian, is what they call it. I remember feeling almost like I was excited and happy, but at the same time, I did feel guilty because for a number of reasons. I never was raised on reserve. I've never lived on my reserve. Our family grew up very close to the reserve, within a 10-minute drive. And at the same time too, I went to school with a lot of kids from our reserve. Our school, I went to a country school. It's called Rocky Lane School, and it's actually a school out in the country, and it's mostly farm kids and kids from the reserve that go there. And so I always had a connection with the people of the reserve because lots of my good friends were from there. But it was always still kind of I was an outsider growing up. So when I finally got my treaty rights, I was really excited. And I was like, should I post it on Facebook? Should I not? Because I knew that there would be people, and there still are to this day, people that will sit there and say, well, how did they get their rights? Or they, there's still a lot of, I don't know if you would call it discrimination, but I feel like there's still discrimination from people who have been, I remember seeing a Facebook post, because my reserve is Beaver First Nation, and on the Facebook post someone was comparing us new Indians to the people that have been Beaver Indians all their lives. And I thought, well, that's unfair because I've been who I am ever since I was born. It's in my DNA. Just because I just became treaty doesn't mean I'm any less treaty. I might have a different experience because I was never raised on reserve, but my blood quantum is still the same. It's not like it, and it's unfair to me because that decision was made by the government. Had the government done things differently, I could have been born a Beaver Indian, but I wasn't. My hope for the future for my children is that I always worry about my children because of their light eyes, and yes, they are First Nation. They don't necessarily look First Nation. Not all of my children do, and so I do worry about them because of that. I worry about them being discriminated because of that. I know that there's people out there that would do that. So my hope is that, and what my husband and I really strive to do is we've brought culture into their lives early on. I've been a traditional dancer since before we had kids, so ever since they were in my womb they've been dancing. Ever since they were in my womb they've been going to Sundance. Ever since they were in my womb they've been smudging and part of ceremonies. So I think that's going to be a big game changer for them in their lives because I didn't have that growing up. And so perhaps part of my disconnect was because I didn't have that culture and didn't quite know where I came from or quite know where I belonged. So it's really important for us to bring two cultures into our kids' lives. So they Métis dance, they jig, they go to Métis celebrations as often as we can. They have Métis sashes, and then they also powwow dance, and they danced in their first powwow this year in Grand Prairie. And so it's just really important that we have both of their cultures intermingled into their lives early on so that they know right from the get-go where they belong. And I really believe if they know in their heart where they belong, then life will be a little bit easier for them going through life. And I really hope that that things change, that they have an easier time. And another thing that's really important to us is making sure that they go and to see both their families. Like I'm Cree, Beaver, Métis from northern Alberta, and my husband is Piikani from southern Alberta. So making sure that they're getting time to spend, make memories with both sides of their family and knowing where they come from. I think that in order for there to be a shift, we have to accept and know where we've come from. I don't think shifts don't happen on their own. We need to do the work. Like the only way I can explain it is like my own shift in my life. I wouldn't have been able to get to that shift until I look at that those bad times or that bad stuff in my past. So in order for us to move forward, we need to know where we come from, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And everybody needs to know it's Canadian history. It's the history of Turtle Island. It's our history, it's their history. It's a shared history, and it's so important for us to know what we've been through in order to work through that. It's all a process, so you have to work through that and then be able to figure out where we're going from there.
When you look at the youth that have taken part in this, what was it like that first week to see those experiences come about in experiencing cultural teachings?
It was for me, I really appreciated the fact that this camp was half Indigenous and half non-Indigenous, and that the cultural teachings aspect was a part of it, because even for the Indigenous children, the Indigenous youth may not have known a lot of those facts, and it was really neat just to see all the shy youth for the first 2 or 3 days coming together and coming out of their shell and sharing more. It was really powerful for me to be able to sit back and watch that happen and watch the light bulbs go off in their heads of,
When it comes to social change and talking about social issues, why do you think that these kind of camps are great for incubating those thoughts and those ideas?
It's a safe place. These kind of camps provide a safe space for our youth to share, and that's really important. And the length of time that this camp was scheduled for, 2 weeks, it's enough time for everyone to start opening up and doing it in a safe space.
And I guess the last question I have for you is, why do you think, what would you like to see happen in the future in regards to identity? How would you like to see it grow, the brand?
Well, I mean, like any of the things I'm involved in, I want to see it grow, and it's been an honor to be part of it. And I really see it. I'd like to see it reach more youth. I'd love to see the camps continue, and I'd like to see, definitely sticking to that cultural aspect, and keeping the truth and reconciliation as part of it. Like I think Len had said, like, we know our truth, now it's time to reconcile. And so this is all part of that process of moving forward, and just would definitely like to see it reach more youth. We are all one. I have to smile.
And we kind